Once upon a time, there was a mother goat, and she had 7 little kids. She loved them all very much, and she worked hard to keep them all happy and healthy. Not so very far away, there was a big, bad wolf. He worked very hard to keep only himself happy and healthy. He didn't much care about anyone else. One day, the mother goat needed to go to the market to get some delicious dinner for her kids. As she left the house, she told her little baby kids to lock the door behind her and not to open it for anyone. Don't open the door for anyone, especially the big bad wolf. He might try to trick you, but remember, his voice is rough and gruff and grumpy sounding, and his paws are grey. If you remember those things, he won't be able to trick you. She kissed them all goodbye, and off she went to the market. Before long, the wolf came along, just as the mother goat had predicted. He knocked on the door and said, "Little goats, it's me, your mother. Do let me in. I've bought treats for you from the market." The little goats listened carefully and heard the rough, gruff, grumpy sound of the wolf's voice. "Go away," they shouted. "We know you're the wolf. Your voice is rough and gruff and grumpy, and our mother's voice is lovely and nice. You can't fool us." Quite annoyed, the wolf stomped off back into the woods he came from. A bee buzzed around his head and he had an idea. He found the bee's nest and carefully took a little bit of honey, which he ate up in one big lick. When the honey reached his throat, it soothed it and made his voice sound all smooth and lovely and nice. He grinned wickedly. Off he went back to the little goat's house and knocked on the door again. "Little goats, it's really me this time, your mother, back from the market with treats for all of you. Do let me in." The little goats all looked at each other. It really did sound a lot like their mother. But the littlest goat peeked through the letterbox and saw the wolf's grey paws. "You're not our mother," he cried. "Your paws are grey and our mother has white hooves. Go away, you can't fool us." Even more annoyed, the wolf skulked off back into the woods he came from. As he walked, he got tangled up in a spider's web, the sticky silk covering his face. "Ugh!" he cried. But then he had an idea. He took the pale, silvery white spider silk and wrapped it round and round his hands, smoothing it and shaping it as he did so that after a while his paws looked just like little white hooves. Off he went back to the little goat's house and knocked on the door once more. "Little goats, here I actually am this time, your dear mother, back from the market with treats for all of you. Listen to my lovely and nice voice and look at my cute little white hooves." He dangled them daintily by the letterbox for the little kids to have a look. "Please let me in." The little kids looked at each other again and they all nodded in agreement. Nothing to worry about here. They happily unlocked the door and threw it wide open to greet their mother and eat their delicious treats. The wolf jumped through the door and said, "Ha ha, it's me, the wolf, you silly little goats. It was me all along. I fooled you." He chased them all around the house and they tried to run away and hide. 3 goats hid under the bed. He found them. 2 goats hid behind the sofa. He found them. 1 goat hid under the doormat. He found him rather easily. The wolf threw them all in his sack to take home for his dinner. But after the busy morning he had had, traipsing back and forth to the woods and then chasing those pesky little kids all around the house, the wolf felt rather tired. He spotted a nice little patch of soft grass under a shady tree just by the riverbank, and he thought, "I'll just have a little nap, and then I'll head on home with my sack of goats and eat them for my tea." Feeling very smug, the wolf set down the sack and went to sleep. But there was something the wolf hadn't realised, something that he had missed. And if he had listened properly at wolf school in his maths lessons, it would not have been so easily overlooked. Earlier on, when he was chasing the little kids, trying to find them all in their hiding places, there were 7 little goats. But in his sack, well, let's see, 3 goats under the bed, 2 goats behind the sofa, 1 goat under the doormat. That's only 6 little goats in the sack. 1 little goat was missing. Meanwhile, back at the goat's house, the real and very lovely mother goat returned from the market. She opened the front door and gasped at what she saw. The house was in utter disarray. The chairs had been knocked over, the curtains had been pulled off their hooks, and her lovely little baby goats were all gone. "Where are you, my little kids?" she called out, panic-stricken. Then a little muffled voice said, "I'm here, Mother." She followed the sound of the voice to the grandfather clock and opened the little door wide. Her littlest baby goat was squashed inside. After she had pulled him out and he had told her exactly what had happened, the lovely mother goat put her serious face on. She didn't use it very often, usually if they wouldn't tidy their toys or if one of them pinched a brother or sister goat. But when she did, her baby goats knew she meant business. She took the littlest goat by the hand and marched off towards the woods, determined to give that naughty wolf a very severe talking to. They found the wolf still snoring under the tree, the sack of goats still wriggling and jiggling beside him. Mother Goat had an idea. She carefully opened the sack and, encouraging the little kids to be as quiet as possible, she freed them. She hugged and kissed all 6 of the little rescued goats, and then she got to work. She collected up 6 of the biggest rocks she could find and placed them in the sack, tying it up again just as she had found it. She and her 7 little kids watched, hidden behind a big boulder, as the wolf stirred and woke from his nap. He licked his lips and rubbed his greedy paws together as he went to lift the sack onto his back. But the sack was so much heavier than before, and the wolf wasn't expecting it, and the weight of it, as he swung it over his shoulder, made him stumble backwards, right into the river. Splash! The little goats and their mother goat laughed and laughed, and then they skipped back to their little house. After a bit of tidying up, they sat around their table enjoying the treats their lovely mother had brought from the market. And they all lived very, very happily ever after. The Three Billy Goats Gruff. Once upon a time, far away from here, in a little valley nestled between 2 hills, there were 3 goats. They were brothers, and everyone knew them as the Three Billy Goats Gruff. Their names were Little Billy Goat Gruff, Middle Billy Goat Gruff, and Big Billy Goat Gruff. They had a simple and happy life. They spent their days frolicking in the meadow, munching on the sweet green grass, and playing by the crystal clear river that separated the 2 sides of the valley. The valley was beautiful, and they were very happy there. But as time went by, they realised that they had a big problem. The sweet green grass that they loved so much was almost gone on their side of the valley. The goats had eaten nearly all of it, and their meadow was starting to look patchy and bare. One day, Little Billy Goat Gruff looked up from munching on his grassy breakfast, and he saw that the meadow across the river was filled with thick, juicy green grass. "Brothers," he said, "have you ever noticed how absolutely delicious that grass looks over there?" Middle Billy Goat Gruff said, "Wowzers, I've never seen such scrumptious-looking grass. But, little brother, there's one big problem. We have to cross the river, and we can't swim." "What about that?" said Little Billy Goat Gruff, pointing at a nearby wooden bridge. "No one crosses the bridge," said Big Billy Goat Gruff. "There is a troll under there, and he's big and mean, and he eats goats like us for breakfast." His brothers gasped. "And he's smelly too," Big Billy Goat Gruff added, and his brothers gasped again. Big Billy Goat Gruff was absolutely right. The troll was big, and he was mean, and he did eat goats for breakfast. His skin was green and warty, his teeth yellow and crooked, and his nose was spotty and snotty. He was grumpy and lumpy, and what he hated more than anything was the thought of anyone crossing over his bridge. "All I want is a bit of peace and quiet," the troll would say. "Is that so much to ask?" He just happened to think that goats were the most delicious thing in the whole wide world, and that made him extra dangerous. But the 3 Billy Goats Gruff were fast running out of food in their meadow, and they were starting to get rumbly tummies. They needed a plan. They put their heads together and they thought hard about what they could do.
"We could sail across,"
Little Billy Goat Gruff suggested.
"We don't have a boat."
Middle Billy Goat Gruff said.
"Could we try sneaking over the bridge at night?"
Little Billy Goat Gruff said.
"Our feet would make too much noise on the wooden planks,"
Middle Billy Goat Gruff replied.
"The troll would hear us with his great big ears and gobble us right up." "What if we built another bridge?"
Little Billy Goat Gruff said.
"We're goats," Big Billy Goat Gruff said. "We can't build anything." "Good point,"
Little Billy Goat Gruff said. They kept thinking until they came up with the perfect plan. The next day, Little Billy Goat Gruff trotted up to the bridge. His hooves made a trip-trap sound as he stepped onto the wooden planks. No sooner had he set his foot on the bridge, the troll jumped up from underneath it to block his path.
"Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?"
roared the troll, his horrible voice echoing through the valley.
"Nothing to worry about,"
Little Billy Goat Gruff said as bravely as he could.
"It's only me, Little Billy Goat Gruff. I'm just popping over to the other side." "I don't think so. I'm gonna gobble you up,"
bellowed the troll, licking his lips.
"Well, you could,"
said Little Billy Goat Gruff.
"but I don't think I'd make a very good meal. I'm much too tiny."
The troll looked confused. He got confused quite a lot. Then the Little Billy Goat Gruff continued.
"Why don't you wait for my brother, Middle Billy Goat Gruff? He's much bigger and tastier than me."
The troll thought for a moment and then stepped aside, smiling.
"Very well," he said, "but hurry up and get off my bridge,"
he added with a snarl. And with that, Little Billy Goat Gruff scampered across the bridge and began to munch on the delicious green grass on the other side. Next, it was Middle Billy Goat Gruff's turn to cross the bridge. His hooves made a louder trip-trap sound as he stepped onto the wooden planks. Again, the troll appeared.
"Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?"
roared the troll.
"It's only me, Middle Billy Goat Gruff. No big deal," said the goat in his medium-sized voice, trying to be brave. "I'm just popping over to the other side to join my brother." "I do not think so. I'm gonna gobble you up,"
bellowed the troll, showing his horrible yellow teeth.
"Well, you could,"
said Middle Billy Goat Gruff.
"but the thing is, I'm not that big, and I wouldn't be a very good meal, especially for someone as big and strong as you. Wait for my brother, Big Billy Goat Gruff. Now he would fill you up, that's for sure."
The troll licked his lips and stepped aside to let the goat pass.
"Very well," he said. "Now hurry up and get off my bridge."
Middle Billy Goat Gruff trotted across the bridge and joined his little brother on the other side and began munching through the lush, juicy grass. Finally, it was Big Billy Goat Gruff's turn to cross the bridge. His hooves made a very loud trip-trap sound as he stepped onto the wooden planks. The troll, expecting a big meal, jumped up immediately.
"Who's that trip-trapping over my bridge?"
roared the troll, his mouth watering.
"It's me, Big Billy Goat Gruff,"
said the goat in his biggest, deepest voice.
"At last," said the troll. "I've been waiting for you, Big Billy Goat Gruff. You look very big and very delicious, and I simply can't wait to gobble you up."
The troll bared his horrible yellow teeth. Big Billy Goat Gruff was not scared of the troll. He had big, strong horns, and he was mighty brave. "Bring it on, you spotty, snotty, lumpy, grumpy beast," he said boldly. The troll was a bit taken aback. He wasn't used to being challenged like this, but he was also very hungry, and he decided to take Big Billy Goat Gruff on. The troll lunged at Big Billy Goat Gruff, but the big goat was ready. He lowered his head, pointed his horns at the troll, and charged. He butted into the troll with such enormous force that the troll was thrown backwards off the bridge and into the river, floating away downstream, never to be seen in the valley again. With the troll gone, Big Billy Goat Gruff skipped lightly across the bridge and joined his brothers in the lush green meadow.
The three goats were over the moon to be back together again and to finally be in the beautiful green meadow, eating the luscious, scrumptious and plentiful grass. They spent the rest of their days happily grazing and frolicking in their new home. And with the troll finally gone, they could cross the bridge whenever they wanted without any fear. And they lived happily ever after. What about the troll, I hear you ask? Well, a lot of people don't know this, but he floated down the river, away from the valley and out to sea. After weeks of floating about, he eventually washed up on a desert island, a quiet and peaceful place with absolutely no one else around. It was paradise for the troll. He found that coconuts were even more delicious than goats, and he spent the rest of his days guarding his beautiful island home, which was easy because no one ever found it. He may even be there still. This is the story of Goldilocks. Once upon a time, in the woods just down the road, there lived a family of bears. They were happy and kind, and they were the type of bears to always try to see the best in everyone. If someone was rude to them, they would say, "That's okay, maybe they're having a bad day. We've all had one of those." Or if someone pushed in front of them at the shops, they would say, "That's okay, maybe there's been an emergency and they're in a terrible hurry." Always kind, always generous, and loved by everyone in the woods. They lived in a sweet cottage, just the three of them. Papa Bear and Mama Bear were carpenters, and they fashioned the house and everything in it to be just perfect for their little family. All of the furniture was made to measure for each of them, and every day when they came home and sat in their chairs or lay in their beds, they would heave a huge sigh of relief and think how lucky they were to have such a perfectly comfortable home. One sunny morning, Mama Bear made 3 delicious bowls of porridge in each of their special bowls. A small wooden bowl for Baby Bear, a medium-sized, pretty blue and white china bowl for Mama Bear, and a large tin bowl for Papa Bear. But when they came to eat their porridge, it was far too hot and nearly burned their mouths. They decided to go for a gentle stroll in the morning sunshine, so they put on their hats and stepped out into the woods. Not far away lived a little girl named Goldilocks. She was an obnoxious little oik. That means she was unpleasant, rude and selfish, and she didn't care at all who she put out or offended. She was an all-round nasty little wretch, and all those who met her considered her to be generally bad news. Goldilocks happened to be strolling through the woods on this lovely sunny morning too. She'd been sent outside by her mother for refusing to help with the washing up. Straight away, she smelled the delicious porridge smell wafting through the air, and she followed it to the bear's cottage. And then Goldilocks just let herself in, with no concern for what sort of trouble it might get her in. She was pleased to see no one was home and strolled right into the kitchen without even taking her muddy boots off. She plonked herself down at the table and took a great big steaming spoonful of Mama Bear's bowl of porridge. "Yuck," she declared rudely. "Too sweet," and spat the porridge back into the bowl. Disgusting behaviour. She took a huge mouthful from Papa Bear's bowl. "Yuck," she scrunched up her horrid little face. "Too salty," and spat the porridge back into the bowl. She took a great big heaping spoonful from Baby Bear's bowl. "Mmm," she said, "just right." And she scoffed the lot, the greedy thing, even licking the bowl. When her belly was full, she fancied a little sit down and swaggered through to the living room. There, she found the 3 bears' chairs. Goldilocks tried Papa Bear's chair first. "Too hard," she said, and jumped off the chair, knocking it backwards onto the floor. She tried Baby Bear's chair next, and as she flopped down onto the chair, it broke and went crashing to the ground. "Ugh!" she cried. "What a horrible little chair!" Finally, she tried Mama Bear's chair. It was perfectly comfortable, and it was a very pretty pink colour with buttery soft blankets thrown over the back. Goldilocks made herself right at home, picking her snotty little nose and wiping it on the arm of the chair. What a horrid little girl. She felt a little bored and decided to head upstairs for a rest. She clomped up the stairs, leaving a trail of mud behind her. She lay down on Papa Bear's neatly made bed first. She couldn't get comfortable, and she tossed and turned until it was all messed up and muddy from her boots, which she still hadn't bothered to take off. Eventually, she rolled out of that bed. "Too hard," she said, and moved on to Mama Bear's bed. She flopped down onto it and nearly disappeared amongst all the cushions and soft blankets. "Ah!" she cried, and tried to wrestle her way back to solid ground again. "Too soft," she said, yet again, leaving a muddy trail behind her. Lastly, she fell into Baby Bear's bed. She thought. If she were perfectly honest with herself, it was a little cramped, but it was the most comfortable of the three, and she was rather tired, so she rolled over and went to sleep without another thought. Just then, the sweet, kind bear family returned from their walk, hungry and eager to eat their breakfast. They'd been thinking about their delicious steaming hot bowls of porridge since they left, and they were very excited. Straight away they noticed that something was wrong.
"Somebody's been eating my porridge,"
said Papa Bear. "Somebody's been eating mine too," said Mama Bear. "Somebody's eaten all of my porridge," said Baby Bear. The bear family looked at each other, and even though they were very upset and really rather hungry, they decided to think kind thoughts. This is very difficult, especially with empty tummies. Perhaps the person who ate our porridge was lost and scared and starving. We should think the best of them, they said. They decided to go and sit down and try to enjoy what was left of the morning, but when they saw their chairs, they were even more concerned.
"Someone has knocked over my chair,"
said Papa Bear. "Someone has broken my chair altogether," said Baby Bear. "There is snot on my beautiful chair," said Mama Bear. The bears looked at each other and tried very, very hard to think kind thoughts, although this was becoming increasingly difficult. They were starting to feel little prickles of annoyance at their mysterious guest. Perhaps the person was unwell, they tried. Maybe they sneezed so hard that Papa Bear's chair fell and broke Baby Bear's chair, and perhaps some sneeze accidentally got onto Mama's chair. It sounded pretty far-fetched, but they really were doing their best. That's when they saw the trail of mud going up the stairs. They followed the trail, wondering what on earth they would find next.
"Someone has messed up my bed,"
said Papa Bear, feeling very cross. "Someone has messed up my bed," said Mama Bear, feeling even more cross. "Someone is literally still asleep in my bed," cried Baby Bear, feeling the most cross of them all. Just then, Goldilocks opened her eyes and let out a huge yawn. The bears looked at her, waiting to hear what possible explanation she could have. She took one look at the bears and said, "Ugh! What are you all staring at, smelly old weirdos?" The bears could hold it in no longer. They had tried and tried and tried to see the best in Goldilocks, but it seemed to them that there just wasn't any good in her at all. Their crossness built up inside them until it exploded out in a gigantic and ferocious roar. In a heartbeat, Goldilocks jumped from the bed, ran down the stairs and bolted out of the door and into the woods. Goldilocks went straight home to her mother and started frantically washing up as fast as she could. Her mother never knew why, but Goldilocks seemed to be a lot more pleasant and helpful from that day on. And the three bears made sure to always lock their door when they went for a stroll. The Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs. The first pig loved to play and have fun. She would spend hours out in the fields making daisy chains and climbing trees. The second pig was very good looking. He liked to go down to the pond and look at his reflection all day. The third pig was extremely clever. He liked to stay in his bedroom reading books and doing sums. But sometimes the little pigs would forget to help Mummy and Daddy Pig with the chores, and this made them feel very cross. One day, Mummy Pig said, "I've had enough of you 3 lazy little pigs. This house is a terrible mess, and you three don't help at all. In fact, you make it 10 times worse. It's time you grew up and moved out. Then maybe I'll have a chance to make daisy chains down by the pond, and maybe even finish my book." The 3 little pigs were a bit sad that they were being turfed out. But the third very clever little pig said, "If we all have our own houses, no one can make us do any chores." The other little pigs liked this idea, so they packed their bags with everything they would need out in the big wide world. Mummy Pig waved them off with her handkerchief. "Watch out for the big bad wolf," she cried after them. "What did she say?" said the first pig. "Wasn't listening," said the second pig. "Me neither," said the third pig. The 3 little pigs shrugged their shoulders and off they went. After a while, the 3 little pigs walked past a huge meadow full of wild flowers, and the first pig stopped to have a look. She was getting a bit bored of walking and wished she could go and play. Just then, a big red tractor with a trailer full of straw came bumping along down the road behind them. As the tractor came closer, it went over a huge bump and a bale of hay fell off the back. "That'll do," the first pig said, and hugged the other little pigs goodbye. She quickly made a sweet little house out of the straw. It was a bit of a rush job, and it wasn't very sturdy or strong, but it was cosy enough, and the first pig spent the rest of the day picking flowers and playing in the meadow. The second pig and third pig carried on down the road, and after a while they walked past a big, wide, lazy river and stopped for a drink. The second pig wished he could stay longer, and, as luck would have it, another big red tractor came bumping down the road, this time with a trailer full of sticks. As the tractor came closer, it went over a huge bump and a bundle of sticks fell off the back. "That'll do," the second pig said, and hugged the third pig goodbye. The second pig spent a little longer making his house, but only because he wanted it to be beautiful, not to make it sturdy or strong. When his house was finished, it looked absolutely lovely, with not a stick out of place. He spent the rest of the afternoon next to the river, admiring his gorgeous reflection. The third pig carried on down the road until he came to a lovely spot near to town, just a short walk from the library. He looked up and down the road, wishing for a tractor that something might fall off the back of. Soon enough, a tractor did come along, and wouldn't you know it, it went over a big bump and a lovely big pallet of bricks fell off the back. "That'll do," said the third pig, and got to work making his house. Now, the third pig was a bit of a smarty pants and decided to make the strongest, sturdiest house he could. He took all night building the house, and it had a smart front door and a nice big fireplace and a handsome chimney on the top. When he was finished, he closed the door and locked it behind him and sat down to do some sums. The 3 little pigs loved their houses, and they all lived happily ever after. Well, that's not quite true, because the big bad wolf had picked up the 3 little pigs' delicious scent and found himself outside the first pig's straw house in no time at all. The big bad wolf was an expert at eating piggies, and he knew just what to do.
Little pig, let me come in."
"Not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin, I will not let you in," replied the first pig. "Then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house in," howled the big bad wolf. He took an enormous deep breath and, before he could blow it down, a gentle breeze came along and scattered the straw house in the wind, leaving the poor little pig trembling where it once stood. The big bad wolf put the first pig in his sack for later. The big bad wolf carried on down the road, following the yummy scent of the second pig. Soon enough, he came across the stick house.
Little pig, let me come in."
"Not by the hairs of my chinny chin chin, I will not let you in," replied the second pig.
"Then I'll huff and I'll puff
"And I'll blow your house in," howled the big bad wolf. He took an enormous deep breath and blew as hard as he could. The stick house wibbled and wobbled and swayed, and before long came crashing to the ground, leaving the poor little pig trembling where it once stood. The big bad wolf put the second pig in his sack for later.
The big bad wolf carried on down the road, following the scrumptious scent of the third pig. Soon enough, he came across the brick house.
Little pig, let me come in.
Not by the hairs on my chinny chin chin, I will not let you in, replied the third pig.
Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in,
howled the big bad wolf. He took an enormous deep breath and blew as hard as he could, but nothing happened. He took an even bigger, deeper breath and blew the hardest he had ever blown. The house didn't even quiver. The big bad wolf wasn't very happy about this. He was supposed to be an expert at eating piggies. It would be really embarrassing if this little piggy got away. He tied the sack full of the first and second pigs to a tree and looked all around the house for a way in. Spying the chimney, he climbed the drain pipe and crossed the roof. It was a bit of a tight squeeze and it was quite warm, but it would be worth it, he told himself. The big bad wolf sat on the edge of the chimney and jumped. The wolf fell down, down, down the chimney, right into the fireplace below. He jumped up, howling, and found that the very end of his long tail was on fire. The wolf ran out of the door and back down the road, and he never tried to eat another pig as long as he lived. The three little pigs all laughed and danced and hugged all night. From then on, they all lived in the strong, sturdy brick house and worked together to keep it clean and tidy. The very clever third pig used his great big brain to help them use their time wisely. The very beautiful second pig showed them how to make the house look beautiful. And the very playful first pig showed them how to have fun while they worked. And they really did all live happily ever after. The end. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this magical story. If you want to come along on more of our adventures, make sure you subscribe to our channel. There's so much more to be discovered. You can start right now by clicking on our channel and picking your next favourite tale. There really is something for everyone, from daring heroes and mischievous creatures to magical lands and secret wonders. And remember, by subscribing, you'll be the first to know when a brand new story is ready to be enjoyed. Let's go.